Child protection is the prevention of exploitation, abuse, neglect, harmful practices, and violence against children, as enshrined in the South African Constitution. Now, with this in mind, the ReStory Foundation urges South Africans to critically evaluate party commitments to child protection before casting your votes on the 29th of May. And for more, I'm joined by Mandy Pearson, the CEO and founder of the ReStory Foundation. Mandy, thank you so much for your time and welcome to News at Prime. But firstly, very critically, you have said that the ReStory Foundation urges South Africans to critically evaluate any commitment to child protection before casting their vote. Could you elaborate a little bit on your position in this regard?
Yes, good evening, Masichaba, and good evening, viewers. The elections actually take place on the first day of Child Protection Week. And for us, that really highlights, because more than 1 in 3 people cannot vote in South Africa, and that is the children. And when you look at just the sexual abuse statistics in South Africa, they are horrific. The ones that we do have, that if you work out with the statistics, it's 1 child every minute is sexually abused in this country. And when you look at a study by Optimus, that 15-year-olds, 1 in 3 had been sexually abused. So if you go into a classroom of 30, 10 of them would have been sexually abused by that stage in their lives. And this really needs to be highlighted. And we're saying, are the political parties looking at these? Are they prioritizing children and their right to be protected?
That is really incredibly scary. Tell us in which way that the ReStory Foundation is ensuring the safety and protection of children, especially, not just during this time, but in general.
Well, a large focus of ours is focused on orphans and vulnerable children. We have a number of children coming to our programs, and that is really enabling them to be courageous agents of change, overcoming the trauma that they have received, as many of them have been subject to sexual abuse or other forms of abuse. But for us, when we look at, when we deal with justice, when we deal with the police system, we have immense challenges. We had a 7-year-old girl who identified her rapist in secret, and then the rapist was marched past her in full view, and then he was actually let out on bail 4 weeks later, and she had to be taken away out of the area. And he was walking around the area. The police wouldn't rearrest him. He raped another child. So we were fighting with the courts to have him rearrested. So these kind of things, our children, actually, we had our children involved in marching to the courts. And someone said to me, how can you have children march? But this is the daily reality for them. And it was a wonderful way of them saying, we are going to make a difference. We're standing against this, against child rape. And so the rapist was rearrested, and the magistrate had been removed from the court and is under investigation. But there are many cases. We had a young boy, bowel incontinence, 5 years old, and he ends up in a safe house, and years later he's still in the safe house, and the rapist is walking around free on bail. And I could carry on. But we want to see, we really are passionate about seeing the police force being visible in the community and being trusted by the community. That is a big issue. For example, when the rapist was walking around, the police said, no, someone has to come and sign that they've seen him. And nobody would put their signature because there was this perception their name would be sold. Rightly or wrongly, that was a perception. How do we change the reality of that? We want to see the justice system really protecting, safeguarding children. We have a child who, she found her mom murdered under the bed 5 years ago. She's still being called to court 5 years later, and that case is not resolved. How is the court dealing with children in these cases? How are they making sure that rapists aren't getting out on bail? Schedule 6 says they shouldn't go out on bail unless there are strong circumstances for them to get bail. So we're just questioning that, and we're challenging South Africans to say to their political parties, the political leaders that they support, what are they doing about child protection? What are they doing to stop this? I mean, the incredible thing.
That's a very valid question, Mandy. And before we talk about what the political parties are doing to protect children in communities, we know that even before the police steps in, that policing begins in the community in itself, because someone always knows when a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old is being raped in a household or in society. But we turn a blind eye. What responsibility do we play in society, whether it's at a community level or even within the family?
Every single person pays a responsibility. You know, the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to protect a child. And we are really encouraging in the community for people to stand up. And we've seen the results of it. That has been positive, people coming forward. But often they won't come forward if they feel the consequences are too severe. And sometimes even for the child to come forward, when the rapist is going to come out on bail, they're going to end up on a safe house. We sometimes even question ourselves, is it the right thing? Because what are the consequences? So it's working together, all stakeholders, individuals, the community, if we are going to overcome this pandemic of sexual violence.
Yeah, I think it's also, Mandy, about, quite honestly speaking, that we no longer sweep things under the carpet because, oh, that is my brother who happened to rape my child, and so we're going to deal with it as a family, you know? So I think it's about families saying, okay, you raped a child, and that is a crime, and so we have to hand you over to authorities as well. How often do you see an eagerness from families to actually commit to this type of intervention?
It's a real struggle because they obviously are facing those people in every day. And so we see the two things together. We see the families really struggling to come forward, but as I said, and I'm emphasizing the consequences as well, neither side makes it easy. So we need to work all as South Africans. How can we make it easier for people to come forward? How can we, in families, how can we encourage people to have the courage to stand up, even if it's against a family member, because those children will grow up. And the result is that they usually commit violent acts themselves or turn to substance abuse or other social ills. And the impact on their lives is significant. It's not just something light for a child to undergo sexual abuse.
Well, Mandy, thank you so much for your time and for highlighting a very critical conversation that no one is even having at this point in time. No one thinks about that little person who does not have a voice and cannot vote. And so the onus is on us to ensure that we protect them at all cost. Thank you very much. That was Mandy Pearson, the CEO and founder of the ReStory Foundation.